All right, welcome back. Now, it is that time of year again. Many of us are getting ready for festivities and merriment. We've put up trees with far too many lights. But let's not forget as well, this time of year is not a happy time for a lot of people. Now, especially because of COVID-19, certainly putting a damper on our celebrations. It's not to take away from the happiness of Christmas, but perhaps just to take a moment to remember that there's a lot of people dealing with sadness as we remember people that we've lost due to COVID-19. So let's try and get together and speak about how we can help each other with any kind of grief we're dealing with. Counselling Psychologist Thobeka Msenga joining us. Thobeka, morning to you. Good to have you with us here on eNCA. So how do we do this? How do we support those who are grieving at the moment?
Good morning, Gareth, and good morning, Tumelo. Thank you for having me. Firstly, Gareth, we have to normalize grief. You know, we have to understand also that grief has no season, especially now during the times of COVID. We are dealing with loss on a daily basis. And we need to understand that, you know, grief is a natural response to loss. And, you know, losing a loved one, it's very, very difficult. And it is coupled up with, you know, a lot of intense emotions. So it's important that we do not put unnecessary pressure on people that are grieving to be joyful or to be happy during the festive season.
How do we know the difference when someone is just having a bad day or a bad week versus someone who's actually grieving? We might not know their story, of course. How can we tell the difference?
Yeah.
Are there any signs?
Gareth, it's very difficult to tell, you know, when someone is having a bad day or, you know, grieving if you don't know. It's very important that, you know, as friends and family, we ask, you know, what could be, you know, causing the person to be feeling down or to be feeling sad in particular. So I think it's very important that we do not shy away from speaking to someone that we know has had a loss. You know, sometimes it could be that a person has just had a recent divorce or breakup, you know, or a miscarriage, you know, a death of a pet. All of these incidents can cause someone to experience, you know, grief-related symptoms, intense sadness, intense, you know, emptiness and loneliness. So it's very important to just ask a person and to be honest in terms of, you know, not knowing how to respond, because a lot of times people do feel awkward, you know, when someone is experiencing, you know, grief-related symptoms. They don't know what to say, what to do. So it's very important to ask the person that is suffering, you know, how do you support them and what can you do to make, you know, things easy over the holidays for them.
Let's flip the conversation around for a moment. We're talking currently about people who might notice someone else is sad, they're grieving, they're possibly depressed, and how we deal with that as the person on the outside. Someone watching right now might want the help. Perhaps they're too embarrassed, they're ashamed. How do they come out and say that they're struggling without saying that they're struggling? Because people don't do that.
Yeah. You know, it's a very natural response for us as humans when we are suffering to want to go into isolation. You know, we want to remove ourselves from our support system because we don't want to burden other people. We don't want to feel like, you know, we're rocking the boat. So it's very important that people understand that reaching out and, you know, acknowledging that you are not okay, you are not in a good space is not a sign of weakness. Remember, we are in, you know, in an environment or in a context where, you know, expressing your vulnerability is seen as weakness. So we need to dismantle that idea that when you are reaching out for support or help, you know, you are not actually displaying signs of weakness. You are actually being strong, and you are actually putting systems in place to cope and to heal. You know, it's also important, Gareth, that when we're talking about loss, we understand the cultural aspects as well. You know, for example, in the African culture, there's a belief that there's, you know, life after death. So meaning that people still have an opportunity to perform rituals to remember and honor their loved ones. And this is often done, you know, in a family, with the community, you know. So in the African culture, you don't grieve alone, you know, your community is grieving when you have lost someone or something. So it's very important, again, to grieve as a collective. And I think that, you know, with the lockdown levels being now, you know, at least on lockdown 1, people have the opportunity to go with to be with their families, to be with their friends, to get that support system from their loved one instead of being, isolated.
Well, I appreciate your time in speaking to us. It's such good advice, isn't it? The takeaway ultimately, Thobeka Msenga, that I have is it's okay to not be okay. It's perfectly all right. Counselling psychologist Thobeka Msenga joining